Diego Luna's been in hits, cult classics, and Star Wars, but Elysium, that one changed the way he worked. It's been 12 years since Elysium came out.
Yes.
When I say Elysium to you, is there an immediate first memory or first reaction that comes to mind?
What do I think about? I think about the wonderful feeling of participating in a film of that scale with that director in my country. Neill, the director. I loved District 9. I thought he had a perspective, like he was a true voice, you know. Neill was like the guy I wanted to work with, and he was so young and interesting. He was coming from South Africa, living in Canada. There was a connection. And then Matt Damon also, you know, is a guy, I think, besides his talent and how capable he is as an actor and charming, he has integrity, and that to me is everything.
Please, look at you. You used to be a legend, and now what?
I got to work with Elysium and with Wagner.
Yeah.
I love both of them, and to get to play with them. Shooting in Mexico.
Do you remember if you had to audition, or were they like, we definitely want you to do it, report to Mexico City?
I'm sure I had to audition, like you should always. To me, that thing of like actors that don't audition, you know, that are not willing to put themselves on tape, I think it's wrong. It's more about giving yourself and the director the opportunity to play a little bit, to find if there's connection, you know. You're about to put yourself in the hands of someone. You're about to like give freedom to someone in terms of like playing with you, manipulating you emotionally, you know. And you're supposed to let yourself go. I always tell actors, you should fight for that opportunity.
I had read that the version of LA that you guys are in was actually a landfill in Mexico City. And I read that the air quality was bad and the crew was allowed to wear protective gear, but the actors weren't. Do you remember any of this?
I remember the smell, yeah. I remember that lunch break wasn't like you know, you wouldn't eat. I remember these tents that were like apocalyptic back then. Now with COVID, we saw a lot of that. And these tents with like 3 layers of protection before actually getting in, you know, for the smell to not to come in and I guess the pollution. But we also found very nice people, very like sweet and welcoming people there. It made me see my city in a different way after. You know?
I want to ask about your costuming for the movie, because you have pigtails, you're covered in tattoos. What do you remember about that process? How long did it take for all of the tattoos to come on?
The tattoos were good.
Yeah.
They were like, you know, these stickers, and you have to be very careful with them, and every 2-3 days you have to replace them. It was a process, but we all had like an interesting process there. There was a lot going on.
In what way was there a lot going on?
He shoots with a lot of cameras. He has this interesting way of actually like a little bit like theater, you know, like suddenly the scene happens and the cameras are moving around you and you have to forget about them. 3-4 cameras sometimes in speaking scenes, not in action scenes, you know. It was interesting. It was an interesting approach.
On a very generalized sci-fi level, it does have similarities to Rogue One and to Andor. But I'm wondering if you felt the similarities when you were watching it or when you were working on any of those things.
Both projects use science fiction in order to reflect on the world we live in. In Andor, it's not just a director, it's a showrunner or writer, producer. But I think Tony Gilroy and Neill are directors that have something to say, very consequent with what they believe in and what worries them, you know, and their worries are there. You can tell this idea of like little resources just available for a few, and the gap between those who have and those who don't becomes spreads and spreads and spreads, you know.
You think I got money? Do I look like I have money? Come on,
Neill, with District 9 and with Elysium, was clearly making a point. And I do think that when you see Tony Gilroy's writing, you can tell he writes about what worries him. So yeah, I think there's a lot of connections between those projects.
I'm curious if you think Elysium changed your career in any way.
Elysium was a beautiful opportunity to also to meet people till today I consider friends. It was very important for me to see the process of Neill, but more for the work I've done as a director. To see someone so free and kind of like reinventing what to me was pretty much set. For the first time I was with a young director saying, no, I don't want to film that way. I'm going to film this way, and I'm going to make it work, and you'll all get to play and to understand my language, and that was like, wow, that's cool to witness. I think that was very helpful for me later.